Hi there, welcome to Tiger Technology and Global's webinar on Spaces MAM. We're really pleased that you could all take time to join us today, whether you're watching live or on rewatch. This webinar, as I said, we're going to be talking about Spaces and Spaces MAM. My name's Nick Warburton. So let me introduce the guys that are going to be talking to you today. Hi, as I said, it's Nick Warburton. I'm from Global hosting. We also joined by Paul from Tiger Technologies. He's a sales director for Northern Europe. We also have Yorgi, give us a wave, Yorgi, from Tiger Technology. He's pre-sales for Tiger Technology across Europe. And also we're really pleased that Ivan from IMC Technologies has taken the time out to join us. And
hello, everybody.
We're going to be going through some of the Spaces MAM features a little bit later on in the presentation. So as some of you guys are aware, this is a series of webinars that we've been talking about. So I'm just going to kick off by recapping a little bit about what we've done previously. For those of you who don't know who Tiger Technology are, Tiger Technology, software vendor, they've been developing solutions since 2004. They have over 30,000 customers, licenses in over 120 countries so far. And their portfolio consists mainly of high-speed SAN and NAS file sharing software, virtual project management, which is Spaces, continuous data protection management and storage management with HSM, which is their bridge product, and then their media asset management module, which is Spaces MAM. So Spaces and Spaces MAM is going to be the focus of our agenda today. So I'm going to recap a little bit about what we talked about a couple of weeks ago on the Tiger Box and how that works. We're then going to move on to talk about Spaces and Spaces MAM. And then Yorgi is going to give us a demonstration of the Spaces product. And then we're going to hand over to Ivan, and he's going to have a chat through with us about the Spaces MAM product, give us a demo, and show you the value add that that product can bring to your workflow. And lastly, with all the webinars that Tiger and Global have been doing together, we have a Q&A session at the end. So under this presentation video, if you're watching it live, there's a text box. Hopefully you've got your computer keyboard in front of you, so do feel free to tap in questions as they come into your mind, and we'll be taking those questions at the end of this. So it's always great to get some questions, so please do send them in. So recapping on what we talked about last time around, the Tiger Box, that webinar is live on Bright Talk now, so you can go back and watch it. In a nutshell, Tiger Box is a high-performance SAN in a box. So it's 16-bay, 24-bay unit, which can be expanded by expansion enclosures, as you can see here. One Tiger Box unit can actually support 4 expansion systems. So that's really interesting from that point of view. We can also support a wide range of connectivity on the back, so we can have 10 gigabit Ethernet, 25 gig, even 40 gig Ethernet, or 16 gig fiber. So this just gives you a real quick snapshot of, you know, a sample deployment, but we can do many different things with the system. What we also talked about last week was the Tiger Technology box installed with Bridge. And as I said at the start of the presentation, Bridge is their continuous data protection module. So we can use Bridge to tier data from the Tiger Box, or any Tiger Store volume for that matter, onto, in this case, a Spectralogic library at the Spectra stack. We have a bundle price with the Spectra stack and the Tiger Box. So you can go to tape. When you move data to tape, you can decide whether you want to reclaim that space on the Tiger Box. So what we can do is reclaim terabytes of space within the file system, so that you can have a small or relatively small or even large Tiger disk product, and then an equal amount of tape or greater amount of tape that you can tier data to. One of the really interesting things also, which is going to be the subject of our webinar in a week's time, also on Bright Talk, is using Tiger Bridge to move data from your Tiger Store volume, or indeed a third-party NAS system, to the cloud. And then you can leverage all sorts of cloud functionality in versioning, AI, etc. So much more on that in a week's time. But back to today, and back to Spaces. So Spaces, the best way I find to describe Spaces is a virtual folder solution. If you think you can have storage, and you can create on that storage workspaces, which are really virtual folders, and then you can allocate content. You can put content into those folders. You can allocate users to those folders and give different users access permissions to different folders. So while last week we talked about how Spaces integrates with Tigerbox, this week we're going to see how Spaces, and as we see Spaces MAM, can be used independently with other third-party NAS systems. It doesn't matter which NAS system it is. One of the other really great things about Spaces is it virtualizes that workspace from the storage, and that allows us to move the virtual workspaces from different storage tiers. And Jorgi will show you how that's done in his demonstration. So I just want to spend one or 2 minutes just going over a conceptual view of how Spaces looks. So if you can see, if we start at the bottom of the slide here, we can see that we've got 3 NAS volumes. You could have, 5, 10, doesn't matter. You could have 1 NAS volume. You have a series of NAS volumes. You might also have a Tiger Store volume. And what Spaces does is, if we can see our little Spaces server sitting to the left-hand side, that Spaces server can be physical, it could be virtual, but it's important to note that that Tiger Spaces server sits outside of the data path, so it's what's called out of band. So it's not interfering or getting in the way of the performance from the NAS volumes to the client workstations that you can see above, be them Mac or Windows workstations installed with Spaces. So you can see here how we have the physical NAS volume, we have our virtual workspace projects, and then we have our clients. Moving on to Spaces MAM, the name rather gives its name away. It's a software module that sits on top of Spaces, and that gives you full MAM functionality that you might expect. It's exceptionally powerful at cataloging and search, adding metadata. It's got an inbuilt web-based browser. It supports file-level ingest, either local or remote from the system. And as you might expect, you can export XML for Adobe or DaVinci products, or AFF to Avid Media Composer, for example, or even you can export directly to social media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook. So what I'm going to do now is, if I end the slide deck, what we're going to do here is hand over to Jorgi, and he is going to give us a tour of the Spaces setup, how you create users, projects, and manage them. So Jorgi, if you want to take control and share your desktop.
Sure, thanks, Nick. Great introduction. Hi, everyone. Glad to have you on this seminar. So I will share my desktop now, and I would like to make a quick overview of how easy it is to set up Tiger Spaces. Basically, Tiger Spaces is a server-based software, so you can manage it through a web GUI. At this point, I have a Windows client machine and a Mac OS client machine connected to a Spaces server. Basically, all you need to do is install a small client driver, enter the IP address of the server, and you're ready to go. Now, the first step for the administrator would be to, of course, log in as an admin. And and then you will need to configure the Spaces server machine to work with particular storages that you have. Now, as Nick mentioned, Spaces can either work with any of our Tiger Store managed SAN volumes, like in this case I have volume 1 and volume 2, or you can work with any NAS storage that can be exported as SMB share or NFS share And as long as the share on the NAS storage has the PSP underscore prefix, it will be detected as a usable disk device from Spaces. And of course, you can combine TigerStore SAN storage with any NAS storage, and you can expand your Spaces setup. So once you choose the storage, the administrator, the main goal is to build up the user database. Now you can either have your own local user database, like in my case, you see I have plenty of users, or you can sync up with your Active Directory users. Building up a local user database is pretty simple. So I'll create a new user, John, just type the password, and I can choose whether John is just a user not able to create workspaces, or an administrator and the user who's able to create workspaces and be a user. In advanced, I have already created some groups, so I can add, for example, John to the editors group. Once this is done, just save, and you have the new user in your database. It's absolutely the same with groups. You just type the name of the group and add people to the group. Once again, if you're in Active Directory, you would be able to choose whether to sync up your Active Directory users or have local users if you're not using Active Directory. Next step for the admin would be to create workspaces and share these workspaces to other users. As you can see, the admin can see plenty of workspaces, and it's pretty easy to create a new workspace. Just click on the plus button, which is for the create new workspace. Let's call it Bright Talk Demo. And we can call it Spaces MAM Demo. Give a description for the workspace. Of course, if you have repetitive workspaces with the same folder structure inside, if you create a template in advance, you can create a workspace out of a template. There are 3 types of workspaces, and the first one is single user write, which is basically volume level sharing. The first person that has read and write access would be able to mount it as read and write. All the other people would have read only until that person releases the workspace. This is good for applications that do not have locking mechanisms, such as Avid Bin locking and Adobe project locking. Second workspace type that we have is Avid Bin locking, which the Avid Bin locking mechanism works the same way as on any Avid storage. And multi-user write, where everybody can read and write, as long as you do not apply additional permissions for the user. So let's say we go for a single user write. For Windows clients, we have a preferred drive letter, so that the workspace always mounts under this certain drive letter and has this path, which is important for many applications. And like in my case, where I have multiple storages, like SAN storages and NAS storages, I can choose where the workspace will be written to and where all the data will be written to. Later on, I will show you that you can move actually the workspace from one tier to another tier pretty easily. Of course, we also have quota management, but quota management is available only for TigerStore managed volumes. So I can submit this new workspace, which is BrightTalk. If I have a long list of workspaces, I can easily use the search to find the workspace. So once I find it, now I'm still an administrator. I just created the workspace. I do have read and write access to the workspace, but I need to share it with all the other people because currently this workspace is available only for me. So simply I would click on the share button, the share dialog would appear, and I would like to all my editors, for example, to have read and write access to this workspace. On the other hand, the VFX guys and girls would have read only. So I would submit these permissions, and now I have the editors and VFX having editors read write, VFX read only. All the other people will not even have the workspace listed in the list of workspaces, so they will have no access. Basically, this is what the administrator needs to do in order to create a workspace for users or groups. Now I will log out as the administrator, and I will log in as the new user that we just created. And I believe I added, yes, to the editors group. And because John is part of the editors group, all the workspaces which are added, which are assigned to the editors group, would be visible to John. And because he's an administrator too, he can actually view everything. We'll take a look later on if it's not an editor. But as you can see, John has the BrightTalk demo that I just created, and he can mount it either as read or read and write or read only. Let's say he mounts it as read and write. And in this case, the workspace would appear as a locally attached this device to his system. Will take some time. Okay, we have it there, the BrightTalk workspace. So now John can start working on his projects, no matter whether it's Avid or Adobe or whatever. He can do some media ingesting or whatever. At the same time, we can have a colleague of John who also has Spaces installed, and for example, let's say Mary is also part of the editors group. So once Mary logs, she's also part of the editors group, but she's not an admin like John. So she sees only she's just a user of the editors group. She sees only the workspaces which are assigned to her. And in this case, she sees that the BrightTalk demo is in use. And of course, because it's single user write, she has read-only access because John has already mounted it as read and write. She can view that John has already mounted this workspace, and she would have read-only access. Of course, she can mount her other workspaces, which are read and write. They would appear once again on her Mac workstation as locally attached disk devices. But until John goes and releases the workspace, Mary will not have read and write access. Once the workspace is released by John, then she would be able to have write access too. So I need to refresh. And as you can see now, Mary can also mount the workspace as read and write, and she can see what John is doing and everything. Going back to John, who's an administrator, and once all the job is finished, of course, John as an administrator can go and say, well, Mary has mounted the workspace. He can forcefully say, well, dismount the workspace for Mary. And then he can continue with managing the workspace. And for example, let's say this workspace needs to be moved to a slower tier, or the space on my volume 1 has been exceeded. I can always choose that this workspace would go to another tier, whether a NAS or a SAM volume. I can just submit it and it will be moved to this other tier. In addition to that, Spaces MAM is absolutely integrated with the IMC MAM inside MAM solution. So this is later on, you will see a more detailed demo done by my colleague Ivan. But from Spaces, you can easily access the MAM because the APIs between the MAM and our software are constantly talking, and everything is constantly updating. So once I log in or create a new user, I can just click on a button, and then the MAM UI will appear. I can see the workspaces that I have done in the MAM, and I can simply start searching for media, editing, metadata, leaving comments, and there's plenty of things that can be done with the MAM. Of course, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to drop them in the chat. I would be happy to reply to them. And that was from my side.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Georgi. So hopefully you can see there how Spaces can be very easily utilized to manage disparate NAS solutions across a facility. So, you know, we know that many post facilities or businesses that, facilities start with maybe one NAS volume and start growing into multiple different NAS volumes. So this Spaces is a very easy way for administrator to and users to easily consolidate all of those resources and manage them from a single access point. Also conferring end user credentials for logging in to make sure they can see the correct material, and of course it's agnostic to the storage, so you could have a high performance tier on Isilon or Pixit or Cumulo, any of those kind of big enterprise vendors. Equally, it works just as well with Infratrend, QNAP, Synology, etc. So hopefully you can see from that it's a very powerful package. So,
and just to add to that, Nick, obviously there's no limits to how many clients you can have on Tiger Spaces, so that's all part of the license program.
Yeah, we do actually have a question in. I know we said we'd take them for the end, but since we just talked about licensing, there was a question on licensing costs and installation and such. So just to give you a flavour, I know in euros the minimum capacity to start with is 200 terabytes, and it's 1,800 euros MSRP for Spaces. So you can see for actually a relatively little outlay, you could start managing a couple of 100 terabytes straight away, and then it's very inexpensive to carry on. And Georgi, in terms of installation, user installable and easy to configure.
Basically, user install is pretty simple. I mean, you have the server side. On the client side, it's actually nothing's complicated. Just click on a driver, restart, and that's it, and connect to the server. Otherwise, on the server side, it's once again, well, you would need to configure if you want your, because we're using SQL databases, whether it would be on your server or another machine, but it's nothing complicated, actually.
Perfect.
And as you saw, the administrator just chooses the storage, whether it's a NAS, multiple NASes, or multiple SAM volumes managed by Tiger Store. No problems. It's pretty easy.
Brilliant. Thanks, Georgi.
Brilliant stuff. So, Nick, you've already introduced Ivan from IMC, but Ivan, nice to see you.
Hi.
So we've only talked about the basic administrative functions, really, of Spaces MAM. So perhaps you can now take us through some of the rather more advanced features of the actual MAM functionality.
Yes, perfect. Thank you for Nick and Jordi for demo introduction. So I will move now my screen to inside MAM. Okay, so basically what was mentioned in the introduction of this presentation is that on the top of the Tiger server, you have also MAM, Space MAM, or IMC inside MAM, which is installed on the same server as your Tiger server, which means Tiger Space server, which means you don't need additional hardware. It's no additional cost. It's running on the same platform. Of course, in a case, let's say if you talk about large facilities or some security issue, whatever, our MAM space can run on the separate server, of course, but as base, it will run on the same server. And as Georgi mentioned, it's a very tight and very powerful and very both-way communication of API, between inside MAM and the space, which means that whatever you do or wherever you create, like a user John that was created in a space, it's automatically available with the same username and a password on the MAM side. Every workspace that was created on the workspace on the Tiger Space side, it's automatically available in inside MAM. We call this project equal workspace. So whenever you do something in a workspace, on the workspace side or on the space side, like creating a workspace, deleting a workspace, sharing the workspace, move the workspace from one NAS to another, this is automatically replicated to the MAM. So you don't need to do twice anything else on the MAM. So we have tiny communication between two products. So as you saw when the first function I will say of the MAM is when you simply, as Georgi mentioned, did just a few minutes before, he adds some media in the workspace, we automatically detect this media. So there is a service in the background, and we detect when I say media, can be any file type, PDF, Word, XML, zip, you mentioned, anything which is visible by the file system, it's automatically added in the MAM. Of course, you can set up some filters where you can say, no, I don't want that MAM browse for this type of file, or I don't want a MAM to include this type of folder, whatever. So the folder structure, like here I have some folders in these workspaces, and any file content, it's automatically replicated. I mean, it's automatically added to the MAM. Once when we detect the media in the workspace, immediately, detecting the media, it's happened immediately. As file is closed, we add the media, and we start in the background construction of the proxy files, which is H.264 MP4 files. You can define yourself bitrate if you wish, which we automatically create in the background on the same server side, proxy, if we're talking about video here, proxy files, which allows you, of course, to view the content of the file. You can go frame by frame. You can mute different audio channels if you have multiple audio channels. So it allows you to view the files, go frame by frame, control the audio level. So first, of course, function is reflecting everything what is your workspace, putting in a MAM, creating a proxy, and you can view the file with a full control of this. You can even do the multiple speed of the playback, full screen, zoom in, zoom out, and of course, playback the file. Now, whatever happened in the background continue to happen on the workspace. We just in the background we can add more. Will automatically add more and more media on your side. Now, before I go to the explanation and the metadata, I just want to mention, because let's start from the beginning. As you saw before, Georgi can just copy some files to your Explorer, actually to your workspace directly. Or you can use any other third application to ingest your files to your workspace. As I said, we will automatically detect this and add by default. But what is very nice and powerful feature on the MAM is that you have also upload function, or let's say we can call file ingest or upload, which means that, as I mentioned before, and I'm repeating just to be clear, this is a full web browser. So it's means nothing to install locally. You can run from any part of the world. You can run from your local PC, from outside of your facilities. Of course, if your if your IP or IT allows you this port to be public. So actually, I can be sitting in Geneva without even having any access to workspace. I can actually just with pressing a button here, upload, said I want to go to this workspace that we just created. I can create another folder if I want, which will create a physical folder on the workspace without even having access to it. I'm repeating, this is very powerful. And I can select, okay, I want to upload some media to that particular workspace. So this can be in your office, but you are not sitting in expensive edit suite, you're sitting in your office, or I can sit in home or whatever, and I can go on a main memory card on my local computer, select one of all media or folders, and I can say go and upload this. So now what I'm doing, actually, I'm uploading from our MAM web user interface directly media to the workspaces. While it's uploading, I can also add some metadata. I can say this is the camera, I can put some values there, etc., etc. So I can add as many, like this can be something which is predefined. I will show you this in a second, but you can also say, okay, once when I upload, please attach immediately metadata to this footage. So, and when I say finish, the system will actually take this file, upload to the web server, and then from the web server will copy the media directly to the workspace. So very powerful feature which allow you to do like a remote file ingest or local file ingest, but again, without even having access to the workspaces. You are able to ingest your material directly to your disk, without even knowing where is your disk, if it's on the NAS1, NAS2, NAS3, SAN. No, you don't care. You know the name of the of the workspace, and this is where your media will show up and be automatically available for everybody who is having access to this workspace. Again, to repeat, we are taking information to the works from the spaces who has rights to see this workspace or that one. It's the same procedure. So of course, if you share some workspaces for some users on the space, this is automatically replicated to the MAM. Now, okay, so we had add some, we have add some, in our case, video to the workspace. As I mentioned, we create a proxy file, fine, we can play back, we can go frame by frame. We are, we can view the content. Now, from that point, we have first tab here, which say master clip. This is, master clip for us means like a file, whole file. So in this tab, you have a free comment text field, which you as you see here, type any type of information, comment, paste from the external applications, whatever, and so you can catalog this file. You can put additional tab, which is the keywords, and you can type some keywords there. Of course, save and go. Then you have another one, which is more like a media info. I will just briefly, it's give you full information where, what is the file type, where is the storage, whatever. So it's more like a technical information, which give you, but of course, it's very useful that okay, what we are talking, because as I said here, we are using H.264, proxy file that we created. But of course, maybe you want to know, if this is SD cam, if it's from Canon camera, on what spaces is stored, etc., etc. Now, you can go further. You remember, I add here a metadata for whole file, what we call master clip, and the keyword separately. But then I can say, okay, for that particular time code, for that particular frame, I can add another metadata. I can go this frame, I can add another one. So which means it's not just that I add or cataloging the files himself, but I can go inside the file, and for each specific keyframe, the frame, I can add a specific metadata for it, which means it gives you really very advanced capability to very deeply catalog your files, which of course we will see after, that you can really search for something specific. And you will see also this, what I do here, will be export to your external application, which means to Adobe or Avid or DaVinci, or most of the people today are reading all these Exchange files, and you can have this information. This information will travel with your file. Okay. Now, you have also specific metadata field, which means that you can build your own predefined metadata, and then here just having access, I said, okay, I want to hear Matt, he's in room 1 somewhere, somehow, etc., location Geneva, or you can again add as many fields as you like and have it here as a predefined metadata field. So here you can build a quite advanced predefined metadata field, which give you, okay, that when we're talking about cataloging of the file, you want to be able to add very quickly something which is predefined. Now, talking about metadata, here also you have some what we call like a quick, metadata fields, which is again a separate one. And you see already I show you like more than like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 separate fields, which each one is an individual table in a database, which allows you to search separately for each one, and of course all together. But just to give you an idea that you can be very precise and very concrete in defining your metadata fields. As again, here you have another one which is like a you can say, okay, call this column global solution 3 or whatever, I'm just putting, and then here you can say, okay, put some metadata here, which is this one. So you have on the top of this information separate fields in a table view. Of course, table views you can change and you can remove which one you want to see, which one you don't want to see, etc., etc. Now, while we are here in this window, this presentation window, I want to show you few actions that is also available for this asset or for this file. First one, of course, you can play back in a separate window. You can just, without opening here, you can say just quickly, okay, play in a separate window, this file to see what is this. But more interesting one is like I press on the share button, and I will do again so you can see there is a share button here, and actually share link, HTTPS or HTTP link to this file by email. So I can send you an email, and you will receive the email with this link, of course, code word, which with the password protection if I wish or not, with the subject in a mail, with the message in a mail. And when you receive in a mail, you will see the link, you click on it, and you will have a separate window, just separate window like this, where you can say, oh, this is nice, put back, it's fine, or cut it more, or whatever. So it's actually from the MAM, you can share the file, you can share the media, you can share the video, audio, text, PDF, whatever, by email, which give you capability to send to somebody some information without giving him access to your MAM. Of course, if you give him, username and a password, and as I mentioned before, your address is a public, he can of course log to your MAM directly, and then maybe has access to his own workspaces where he can see the media. But this is easily, you can share the media to the email address. While we are here, and this is also something which is quite uniquely powerful, I'm repeating again, we do not have even access to the workspace, to the NAS, but I can from the MAM rename the file, and will not only rename the file in the database, will rename the file on the disk also, which means again possibility that I'm sitting from home and whatever. I said home now because this is quite popular just now in the last few months, but anyway, I can sit in my office and organize, because these files came from my camera, which typically, better than me, will came some fancy name, but I want to, before even going to the edit suite, to put some, more concrete name. And when I say here, we will rename the file on the disk. Of course, we was putting the comments, metadata, etc., etc. And of course, we have a function to protect this media, which means nobody can delete it or remove it, or if I have a rights, you can even delete the files. And again, I'm repeating, it's not just deleting files from the MAM, we'll be able to delete files from the disk. Now, all these functions here, and this is just some of them, are also user-based, which means it's a user rights. Some user will have a right to do what I just showed you, some not. It really depends, how you organize your user structure. Now, before even more further to some other action, I will just quickly go back to our player window, and we saw we can put the metadata, we can put the markers, predefine metadata. This is all perfect. But I will go a little bit more here, and then I will say, okay, I want this mark in, I want this mark out, and I will create a new clip, and I will take from here this one mark in, and then this one mark out, and I will create a new clip. For this clip, I can put a separate metadata again, which means that what I'm doing now more, I'm creating a virtual clips from my media. You will say, fine, good. And if I go here in my clip folder, this is, the clips that we just created, and it's playing from mark in to the mark out of that clip, and it's carrying, of course, the metadata from my original clip. Now you will say, that's good, fine, but what I can do now with this clip? Well, these clips, for example, I had a whole media. I can just, for this individual clip, said, okay, I use that piece and this piece, and I can go in action, and I can say very quickly, export this one to the YouTube, highlight news. I was doing mark in, mark out. We will see, we can do editing, but like just before, put to my YouTube channel, or send to the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or just quickly convert this file to the MP4 or to the MXF. Now, just to mention, with the MAM, with the Spaces MAM, it's built inside. Our MAM has a fully transcoding engine included with it, which give you capability to convert media from any format to any format, input, output, which means, okay, this my media was like a, MXF, but I want to export to DNX HD for Avid or MOV ProRes, etc., etc. I can build this and send, and only for that clip. So he will take, like a mark in, mark out, and consolidate. Of course, if I select multiple clips, I can say to the system, take all these clips and glue, consolidate only the piece and put as a new media, one single media, or put each one as a super media. You can build your action as you wish. So give you capability to very quickly consolidate your project from the clips that you was using, or eventually the clips that will come, we'll see later, from external application. Now, while we are here, you saw also we have a export to IF, export to XML, which means to Adobe, DaVinci, Final Cut Pro, etc., etc., or Avid, which will do AAF. This action list, again, can be 0. Somebody can see, somebody not. Again, it's based on the user rights. Now, while we are here, I can also say, okay, but actually I want this file to be first and this file to be second. And you have an order list here. And I can say, I want to select only these two files, and I want to make a sequence from it. Okay, so actually I did mark in, mark out, if you remember, and I was able to export only this piece of the media to the to the external editing application, or export to, but I can also build a sequence. So I will take few files and put them together and then build the sequence from it, which means that here I have a sequence which is built from these two clips, which again, I took good pieces from one media from another media, put them together, I made a sequence, and this sequence again, I can export now to the social media, to another file format, export to Avid, export to Adobe, which will give you capability to continue to edit. It's like a timeline export. You will see this. I will jump in the end of the Adobe, and you will see how this works. But like, just to give you idea that when creating assets from the mark in, mark out, you have very advanced possibility what you want to do with it. Now, the next step will be, as I told you, the action here. If we talk about action, you remember in the beginning I said you need to upload, you need to download, but you can also download the media, which means I can select some media, or I can just search for the media in my MAM, and I can say here, download this media, which means, again, I was able to send the media from my local workstation or Mac to the MAM, but I can also take a proxy file or the high-res file directly from the workspace to my local computer. Again, if I need something locally, which is located on your MAM, you can download this media to your local machine. Again, only if you have user rights to do. Now, to speed up a little bit, you can also very easily, I mentioned you here that you can rename, delete, but you can also say, this is one workspace, this is another, and I can say, just with a simple, for example, drag and drop, I can say move this file or copy a link from one workspace to another. So I can also, modify, move the files or copy the files or link files from one workspace to another. For example, if this is my client, I don't want to give him all media, but he needs only some of them. I can, provide him this media remotely from my web user interface. So I don't need to go to the access to the NAS. I don't need to, access to the edit suite. I can from the MAM just copy the files. And this is the actions also here: copy file, copy media, copy to projects, etc., etc. Now, we was adding this metadata and of course, very powerful search, which give you to search for any particular fields that we was adding, any particular workspace that you have rights. So you can say search to all workspaces or only the one that I can see from to. And of course, you can define here like a whole word, any part of the word, exact word, some custom search. So you can predefine your search to be very precise and give you, very flexibility of what will be result of your search. Now, another module which I want to briefly show you. Remember here, we was playing with the file, we was making sequence, and when we go in a clip collections, we was able to build like a simple sequence. But if you wish, you also have, which is a part, it's a standard part, it's not an option. You have a video edit part, which means you have a full web editor as a part of the MAM, which again, give you some more advanced capability to edit, to make a little bit more advanced, not like a more advanced. You can go marking, you can go mark out, you can insert timeline, you can take this one, drag and drop, this one, drag and drop. You can go in a timeline, of course, you can play back, you can cut this clip, you can remove audio from, you can go another one, but here I will say delete this audio, but I want to extend audio, which is here till this one. So, or you can add a more video layer, more audio layers, you can put the graphics on the top, etc., etc. You have an insert to ripple mode, which is TV or film mode. So you can build a real editing. You will say, well, very good, but what am I going to do with it? Of course, again, you have a possibility to export this as a single file, like in my case, I set up SDCAM, but this can be any type of the file, or you can render directly to the social media. So you can say, okay, render this in MP4, with the crop, with the cropping, or, without any cropping, to make 16:9 or 90:16, put a log on the top and then export to the social media. Or you can just save this as an NLE, which means say the NLE, I save this, to as XML, so I can import in my edit suite. So again, very powerful, of course, which video edit web browser tool, of course, which give you capability to do some simple editing, which can be maybe enough for the news or social media, but it's more to, that you can go in edit suite and say, oh, import this and start to edit. Talking about this, I have here Adobe. In the Adobe, you have inside MAM panel directly. Of course, we can use XML and then go file, import XML. That's work for any application. But on the top of this, in Adobe, you have here Windows extension inside MAM, and inside MAM you log and you see with your username and password, and you see it exactly the same, the files that you said. You said I wanted this sequence or that sequence that I built, or this file, and I see you can just say import to Adobe, and you here you have the timeline that was built on a MAM. It's automatically imported in Adobe, and you can continue to work with it. So direct plugin from the Adobe, it's from the MAM, give you capability to, of course, to view the file, search the file, insert to the MAM, but of course, you can also use simple function import XML, which will work for other application. So basically, this will be very brief, but I think, very information about our MAM solution and what can bring you to facilitate your work, and what is the features, most of the feature I mentioned, that will, give you capability to, use very powerful your space, and especially the assets and the media that are on it. So for the moment, I will take your question, or, and then if something else, and I will stop maybe my sharing so we can go back.
Evan, thank you so much. That was really good, and it's generated us also a couple of questions to shoot through. So thanks, that's really informative. First question: when you're talking about exporting files, is that as the original kind of raw files, or is that the proxy file that you're exporting?
No, you mean when I import to Adobe, I was exporting, of course. So we are linking to the original file. That's all point, because you will go to your workstation. You will map your workspace, and then you will say, import, and then in our XML we are linking to the original file. Of course, absolutely.
Perfect. And then there's a question regarding this is maybe more of a Spaces thing for Active Directory. Obviously, I think we talked about, Georgi, we talked about adding in manually users and passwords and etc. I know, can you just talk a little bit about the Active Directory integration?
Well, basically what one needs to do is just create two different groups in the Active Directory domain server. One would be called Spaces users, and the other one called Spaces admins. And then you can just add the people that you want to be users or admins inside those groups, and Spaces would automatically sync with those groups once the Spaces server is connected to the Active Directory server.
Perfect. And then obviously with regards to that, with the Spaces MAM, obviously because there's such a a tight integration API, all that is inherited by the MAM.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just a couple more questions coming in quickly. In linking, this MAM question, in linking the files, does it download the original file when you're signed in remotely? So I guess if you're connecting over the web, maybe that is the question: is can you, presumably you're working with a proxy file, but if you wanted to download the original file remotely, sort of egress it from that work?
Yes. I don't know if maybe I was a little bit fast, but yes, you have an option there. You can say download proxy or download high-res. You have both options. You can say, okay, I want to download my local station proxy files, or I want to download high-res. Again, this is based on the user rights. Some users will have rights to do, some not. But you can choose. You can choose which one you want.
Brilliant. It's one more question. It might be the same guy just popping in. So he's asking, or he or she, sorry, is asking, how is the proxy file high-res ratio in terms of? Okay, so this is a question. So when you're creating the proxy file from the raw on the storage, what's the ratio proxy to? So maybe you could talk a little bit about that kind of transcode process quickly.
It's a free. You can set up yourself. Like by default, for example, which one I was showing, it's like a 1 megabits per second H.264 MP4 files. You see what I mean? So it's the compression can be lower, can be higher. It's 640 by 340. But again, this is really depends, how you want to build. The one that I will show you, it's really more than enough for, very good viewing of the file. But again, if you want to make more high-end, let's say, proxy file, you can put 5 megabits, 15 megabits, full HD. It really depends, what is your capacity of your server, especially capacity of your line, because if you have 5 users and you want to stream 5 of them outside, you need pay attention to it. But by default, it's 1.2 actually megabits per second H.264 MP4 files.
Great, cool. Well, I think it's just about time to wrap up. There was just one more question, which was around pricing on the Spaces MAM. So I think the jumping in point, Paul, correctly if I'm wrong, is about 2,825 euros list for the first starting pack for Spaces Ma'am. I guess that's a little over $3,000, about $3,150, something like that. Yeah, perfect. So, and then you can expand the capacity, add users, and there's site licenses and such available as well. So if you really wanted to grow it, so we're coming up to the hour. I didn't think it would be that long, but hopefully everybody found it informative and such. So I'm just going to quickly round up a couple of things. Sorry, just while I grab the slide, just to remind people of upcoming events. So on the 22nd of October, which is next week, at 2 o'clock UK, 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Central Europe, and 9 o'clock New York, we're going to be joined by Alex, the CTO and founder of Tiger Technologies, and we're going to have a really good discussion about Tiger Bridge, the workflows it enables, especially with regards to extending NAS into the cloud, AI, using the cloud to enable AI processes, and also we're going to be talking about also partnerships they have with Milestone, a big surveillance company, and other surveillance customers that work. Previously, as I said, Bright Talk Now, there is on the 1st of October, was live on the 1st of October. It's now on demand. That's Tiger Box, Tiger Store, Spaces and Bridge. And we also had a guest speaker, Daniel Sasson from Envy, and he talks about a little bit about how Envy run their systems there. To contact us, my name, as I said, is Nick. You can reach me. Here are my contact details, nickw@globaldistribution.com. My counterpart in the US for questions into the US office is Jonathan. He's Jonathan E@globaldistribution.com. And then, of course, Paul, who you've met on this webinar, paul.reeve@tigertechnology.com. And David, his kind of counterpart, his sales director in the US. You can reach him here, david.pollock@tiger-technologies.com. So you've got all our contact details to reach out and chat through. So just quickly to say thanks from me. I'm going to shoot one quick demo, one last question, because someone's put in, does this MAM run on our Tiger Box? Yes, absolutely. It runs on Tiger Box hardware. You just need Spaces and Spaces MAM. So contact your Tiger reseller for more information. But just quickly, thanks from me. Thanks from Paul, Yorgi, and Ivan. I'm really glad everyone turned up. If you do have any questions, please do email us, and stay safe and speak to you soon.